When St. Francis of Assisi was younger, he liked to party with his friends, and some of his friends and Francis actually went to war together. But when Francis begins to have this conversion experience, after his experience in the San Damiano Chapel, where he's instructed to go and rebuild my church, which is falling into ruins, Francis needs to be alone with God. In other words, he has to separate himself from his friends, and he even separates himself from his father. There's a division between Francis and his father because Francis' father doesn't like the new life that Francis is about to live out. But it's not too much after this that Francis attracts followers, and he has this expression, "And the Lord gave me brothers." In other words, they became his new family. But it's the Lord that inspired this. It's the Spirit that worked through Francis to start the brotherhood and also to help St. Clare to start the Poor Clares, or the Poor Ladies, which they were called at the time, and then the secular Franciscans that we know today. And so how important it is that we journey with others in faith. And, in that second reading, we can be inspired by the saints, but hopefully we are saints to each other, or we are inspired by the people that we journey with. Now, it's not to say that they're always going to inspire us, but they all have gifts that shine through. In other words, God shines through them in certain ways that we ought to cherish. And there'll be moments when we're weak in faith and they're strong in faith, or vice versa. And so how important it is that we journey with others. Now, in the gospel reading, Jesus says that he's come to bring fire to the earth. Now, we can look at this as purifying grace. When we come to know who God is, we better understand who we are, because we're creating the image and likeness of God. So we constantly need to be purified so that we can become more and more like Christ. And really, we never really quite get there. We have moments, but we have to continuously allow the Spirit of God to work through us so that we become more and more like Christ. Now, the other way to look at this fire upon the earth is judgment. But is that really the reason that Jesus came to earth? I mean, even in the Gospel of John, it says, "I've not come to judge, I've come to save." And so, that doesn't really fit. And really what Jesus is saying is he's wishing that his death was over, his death on the cross, and that the Spirit would be the central figure of the Trinity that would be active in the lives of the people. And it's that fire of love and that fire of the Holy Spirit that Jesus is longing for the disciples. Now, of course, when Jesus, through his death and resurrection, he made peace with humanity, and also, between God and humanity. And, it's really that peace that we receive that only God can give. But then what's this all about, that there's going to be all this division in the families? Now, what Jesus is referring to is, in the early church, and even today, we have some people who accept Jesus, we have some people who reject Jesus. And this naturally will cause a division in the family. But like Francis, we have to put Christ first. Christ has to be the most important thing in our lives, because Christ has come to bring us life, and life in abundance. And so, of course, it's the greatest thing that we can follow, and we can be inspired by Christ. That even when he is alone on the cross, that he reveals to us who the Trinitarian God that we believe in, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. In our first reading from the book of the prophet Jeremiah, Jeremiah has divided himself from the people. But really what Jeremiah is trying to get the people to do is to surrender. The Babylonians have surrounded the city of Jerusalem, and the people, Jeremiah's people are still fighting against the Babylonians, and Jeremiah is simply saying, "Save your life and surrender." In other words, he's trying to help the people. But they don't want any part of this. They think that Jeremiah is jinxing the people, and therefore he gets thrown into a pit of mud, which would really tie in with the humility of the crucified Christ. How inspirational. It's not so much that Jesus died on the cross, but how he died on the cross that's the inspiration. And we can constantly use this to strengthen us in our journey of faith, especially when we experience these divisions in our lives, or even the divisions within the church family. And so as we gather around the table, Lord, we all come to the same table. We are all united with Christ, and what a blessing that is to be strengthened so that we can go out and we can proclaim the goodness of God, and we can encourage others in faith, hope, and love.